What's happened to the Renters' Rights Bill? Wasn't it supposed to be enforced by now? Well, Matthew Pennycook, the housing minister, may have said that a year ago, and you can see this here in a BBC article, but a year on, it's still going through the parliamentary process. And in this video, I explain what's happening to the Renters' Rights Bill, the latest on timings, and what the remaining sticking points are. And I also remind you about the key things that we all need to know as the bill goes forward towards implementation as the Renters' Rights Act. And stick around to the end, as I'm going to share how you can make sure you're reliably informed about what to do with the resources you need in the brave new Renters' Rights Act world. Who am I? I'm Suzanne Smith, and I founded the Independent Landlord. I worked as a solicitor for 25 years before becoming a landlord, and I set up the Independent Landlord to provide reliable, no-fluff support to landlords and property businesses. You can sign up for my free weekly newsletter here at theindependentlandlord.com/subscribe. Right, let's get started. Why has it gone so quiet on the bill? Well, the bill is in the very final stages of going through both Houses of Parliament. It started in the House of Commons, as you can see here, Angela Rayner and Matthew Pennycook. That's history now, before spending 7 long months in the House of Lords. And during its passage in the House of Lords, 8 groups of amendments were made to the bill, which the government didn't agree with. And on the 8th of September of this year, 2025, it went back to the House of Commons without Angela Rayner, and they considered these amendments in detail as part of a process that's nicknamed ping pong. The government and its large majority rejected all but one group of amendments, and that one involved the definition of agricultural workers, which isn't going to make a lot of difference to the average landlord. After that, the House of Commons batted it back to the House of Lords with a list of reasons saying why it turned down each of the remaining 7 amendments for session 2 of ping pong. Only thing is that Parliament is taking another break until the 13th of October for the party conferences to be held. And I expect that shortly after the 13th of October, the House of Lords will look at what the House of Commons has said and decide whether to dig in their heels and insist on their amendments, propose their own amendments, or let it go. Also, the government can propose their own amendments to the House of Lords amendments if they want to give way a little and listen to what the House of Lords has said. Then it will go back to the House of Commons as part of the ping pong, and who knows after that, maybe it will go backwards and forwards a couple more times. So, what are the remaining sticking points? Apart from an amendment to issue a new ground for possession for landlords who want to move in a carer, another pretty niche situation, which the government has opposed, the key sticking points that may affect private landlords are, first of all, ground 1A. There's a restricted period during which a landlord cannot relet or market the property for reletting or put it on Airbnb for a restricted period of 12 months after using the new ground 1A, the so-called selling up ground. The government's position is that this restricted period should be 12 months plus the 4-month notice period, because this will act as a deterrent to landlords to stop them gaming the system by saying they want to sell, but then they don't try very hard and they just want to evict the tenant and then they relet it again. The House of Lords have said that this 12-month restricted period is too long, and they want to shorten it to 6 months. Now, the Conservatives' Renters Reform Bill, remember that had this period eventually as 3 months. We'll have to see if the government makes a concession here. The next one is ground 4A, and this is a new ground that would give the right for landlords of HMOs who let to full-time students to recover possession if they jump through a few hoops and have the notice expire from June to September. The Conservatives' Renters Reform Bill was amended to extend this to all full-time students and not just those living in HMOs. And the Conservatives managed to get an amendment passed in the House of Lords that would do the same. So it would allow anyone letting to full-time students to serve the ground for a notice, not just students who are living in HMOs. So it would extend to, a one-bedroom flat or two-bedroom flat. So far, the government has been adamant that they won't expand this ground, but let's see what happens during ping pong. The next one is pet deposits. The Lords passed an amendment that would enable landlords to charge an additional deposit of 3 weeks' rent. This is what Matthew Pennycook said in the debate on the 8th of September.
The existing requirement for 5 weeks deposit for typical tenancies is sufficient to cover the risk of any damages relating to pet ownership. And crucially, as I mentioned, we already have the delegated powers necessary under the 2019 Tenant Fees Act to allow higher deposits for tenancies with pets, should evidence come forward to the contrary.
The next one is the standard of proof for penalties for rental discrimination and rental bidding. This is a bit of a techie one, and it revolves around whether local authorities would need to be satisfied on a balance of probabilities, which means more likely than not, and that's what the government wants because it's quite a low hurdle, or beyond reasonable doubt, which is what the House of Lords want. That's the criminal standard. This all comes to be relevant when the council wants to impose a civil penalty for rental discrimination, which means banning kids and banning people on benefits, or rental bidding. And I'll explain what rental bidding is in a moment. The House of Lords wants it to be harder for local authorities to prove in keeping with the offences in the Renters' Rights Bill. As for the two other amendments, they involve landlords trying to sell a property if they've got a shared lease, and so that they can relet it if the sale falls through. This won't affect many landlords, but the government so far won't give way. And the other one involves extending the decent home standard to service accommodation for families, another very niche one. Okay, let's move on to timing, bearing in mind I'm recording this in the third week of September. So depending when you watch this, some of the timings may have already changed. Well, we don't yet know when the next ping pong session is going to be scheduled and how many back and forths there's going to be. But anyway, we're looking at the moment that the Renters' Rights Bill will receive royal assent by the end of October or possibly November. A little something for Halloween or bonfire night, perhaps. When the bill receives royal assent, it will become an act, the Renters' Rights Act 2025. And very little of it will come into effect straight away, just a few technical things. But the government will publish statutory instruments that set out some of the finer detail of what landlords need to comply with, and crucially, when the new tenancy system will come into force. And this is called the commencement date. The government will also be publishing lots of explanatory notes and things around the time of royal assent. I think it's highly unlikely that the commencement date will be in 2025. And I can't see it happening until May 2026, maybe later. Now, I don't have any inside information, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I do hope that the government will give us at least 6 months' time to get ready for it, longer if at all possible. But what do we need to get ready for? Well, here's a flavour of the main provisions. On the commencement date, all assured short-hold tenancies will turn into periodic assured tenancies rolling from month to month. And so that this means that any existing fixed-term tenancies will become periodic overnight. And this means that tenants will be able to serve 2 months' notice to leave at any time, so long as the notice expires at the end of a rent period. So in practice, this may be a little bit longer than 2 months. If landlords want to try to let a property to new tenants after this commencement date, and if that tenancy agreement has a fixed term in it, then the landlord can receive a civil penalty of up to £7,000. There are lots of other provisions, like having to use the Section 13 Form 4 process to put up the rent. It will also be less risky for tenants to challenge rent increases. And unless landlords have a pending valid Section 21 notice on the commencement date, they'll need to have a Section 8 ground to evict a tenant. And if they evict a tenant without a valid Section 8 ground, the local authority will be able to impose a civil penalty of up to £7,000. Landlords will need to join the landlord database and the ombudsman scheme when they're both launched. Tenants will have the right to keep a pet unless the landlord has a good reason to say no. Landlords will need to set a proposed rent when looking for tenants and won't be able to accept an offer above it. That's called rental bidding, which is what I referred to earlier when we were talking about the balance of probabilities as opposed to beyond reasonable doubt. For new tenancies, landlords won't be able to have valid clauses in contracts that ask for rent in advance, and they won't be able to accept rent in advance from the tenant or ask for it to be paid before the tenancy agreement is executed. Now, as a very, very whistle-stop tour there, there's a lot more detail, but that gives you a flavour of it. But stepping back from it all, it's clear to me that finding and keeping good long-term tenants will be more important than ever. I hear a lot of people say it's too difficult for landlords to get their heads around it because there's a lot of detail. And they say that landlords need to use letting agents and that the days of self-managing landlords are gone. Well, I don't think that's the case. Sure, landlords won't be able to wing it anymore, and we'll all need to take a very professional approach, even if we have one property or 100. But it will be possible to keep on self-managing. You just have to learn what you need to do. And that's where a new thing that I've set up over the summer will come in to help you. It's called the Independent Landlord Hub. It has a huge amount of resources in it, including 2 courses. The first one is landlording, how we do it. It's 50 lessons split over 5.5 hours. It's all included in the price and it's in bite-sized chunks. There's also renters' rights, the basics. It's a short course of a little under an hour, but it's split into 17 lessons. Again, very bite-sized chunks. There's a wonderful forum and regular webinars. We currently have one renters' rights webinar a month and another office hours where you can ask your questions about any landlording topic. And I'll be putting Renters' Rights Act templates in there when we have the details finalised of the Renters' Rights Act, and also a longer course, Renters' Rights, the detail for people who really do want to geek out on it all. All the content comes standard in the subscription. There's no paying extra for courses. Also, there's a strict no sales promotion rule and no sponsored posts or advertisement. So you'll be able to come and learn without being pitched. It's practical, useful information without the fluff, underpinned by a strong, good landlord vibe. It's open to anyone to join, and we've already had hundreds and hundreds of landlords, letting agents, lawyers, people with big portfolios, people starting out, accidental landlords, everybody. And it's me running it, not some AI bot. So come and join us. It's theindependentlandlord.com/hub. You can also subscribe to this channel as I'll keep putting my videos out with all this free content to help get ready for the Renters' Rights Act world and beyond. It's just you get more support inside the hub. See you soon, and hopefully inside the hub.